Is Blender 3D hard to learn? That is the question. My name is Ethan, and by the end of this video I will hopefully have answered that very question for you. You might be a complete beginner just starting out in the world of the 3D modeling, or maybe you are an experienced CAD user who wants to diversify your software background. I am hoping that this video will be the one for you and give you all the answers that you were looking for. Let's get into it. So starting off, what is Blender? Blender is a free, that's right, free, open source 3D computer graphics software toolset used for creating animated films, visual effects, art, 3D printed models, motion graphics, interactive 3D applications, virtual reality, and computer games. Blender's features include 3D modeling, UV wrapping, texturing, raster graphics, editing, rigging, skinning, fluid and smoke simulations, particle simulation, soft body simulation, sculpting, animating, match moving, rendering, motion graphics, video editing, and compositing. Whew. So, is Blender hard to learn? It depends. It depends on you. It depends on your experience, your background, how much 3D modeling you've done before. If you have previous experience in the 3D environment, you should already be comfortable navigating viewports and moving around in the 3D environment. But if you are a complete beginner, then it will be a lot more challenging for you. But don't let that put you off. Just by doing some simple YouTube tutorials, you will quickly pick up the basics for what you need. Later on in the video, I will go through how I would learn Blender. But first, I'm going to give you a little bit of background about how I started in the 3D environment. Now, I was at a little bit of advantage before I started using Blender. I have about 10 to 15 years experience using CAD-based 3D design packages. I'm very familiar with modeling in 3D and moving around in 3D viewports in the CAD environment, but Blender as a package was completely new to me. The shortcuts, modifiers, what's a modifier? The selection tree being on the right this time rather than the left compared to CAD was a little bit weird. Blender was a completely new and alien tool to me when I first opened it up. I used to just open up the package and immediately just be like, what is going on, and immediately close it down. So really I could move around in the software, but I couldn't do anything. So how did I start? I first started by doing the donut tutorial by Andrew Price. It's a completely free YouTube tutorial series. It's a great introduction to Blender and covers a lot of everything. He doesn't go into too much detail on a specific topic, but rather gives you a very wide base to then go out and find your own way. I will link the tutorial series in the description below, so if you are looking for somewhere to start, I'd start there. So from there, I started doing some more smaller, quicker tutorials based on what I needed to learn, like how to edit meshes, how to just get basic shapes. I was already, as I said, I was already at an advantage where I could navigate the viewport and quickly pick up where things were because I've been trained in other software packages. So what I would do for you is start off with the tutorial by Andrew Price, and then depending on where you want to specify into, just follow a series of tutorials like that. A good base of 3D modeling knowledge will allow you to take on more challenging work in the future. You can look at specifying down to what you like doing after that. Do you prefer sculpting, hard surface 3D modeling, rigging, animation, grease pencil, video editing? You know, the world will be your oyster once you actually figure out where you want to focus your attention. But I would start small. I started with simple cosplay props, quick and easy 3D modeling, you know, something that wasn't overly too difficult for me to transition my modeling skills from Fusion or CAD across into Blender. I just started with simple prop cosplays, and then I've just built on top of those skills as the months and months have gone on. If you focus on quick and easy modeling, consistent quick and easy modeling, it will allow you to get used to the user interface and the software very quickly. Setting small but consistent goals will really help you with learning Blender, because you're constantly inside learning how things work, picking up different shortcuts, using different tools and modifiers in the new orders. And just by moving a modifier up or down the stage will completely change your modeling experience. So to recap, I would start with the Andrew Price donut tutorial, Maybe afterwards look for other similar tutorials in that area field where you get a good wide experience, and then just keep modeling. Don't close it down. If you want to start sculpting, go and do sculpting, but sculpt every day. Turn up every single day, do 15, 20, 30 minutes of 3D modeling. Very quickly you'll be able to pick up Blender and actually use it, but just be consistent. Blender is a great choice for beginners who want to start in 3D design. Learning Blender provides you with a strong foundation for the fundamental skills and concepts of 3D and other design packages. A lot of Blender's basic functions, like moving in viewports, are transferable to other 3D software packages like ZBrush. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go over some areas that I might think that beginners might struggle, and then in a second I will go through CAD users, what CAD users might struggle at transitioning from CAD to Blender. So what I think beginners might struggle with is navigating the user interface and the viewports. It's a little bit difficult to understand what all the buttons do, where you would find, the different things you might need inside the interface. But like I said earlier on, if you just continue to use it every single day, get familiar with it, you will quickly pick up where all these things are. Shortcuts are another big one. Shortcuts make your life ridiculously easy in Blender. Just things like using the grab function or the scaling function, Shift D. You should definitely learn the shortcuts for Blender. It will make your life so much easier when you actually are modeling properly and fully to your ability. It's definitely a quicker way to do it than to click through certain different menu items to find the task or tool that you need. Moving the 3D viewport can be a little strange, and it is different from software package to software package. I know between Fusion 360 and Blender there is some subtle differences in how to rotate and pan and zoom, but it's definitely one of the quickest things you can kind of get over as long as you're constantly trying it out and constantly moving and rotating and viewing, and after a while it just becomes second nature. Sculpting and altering meshes, this was one of the things I found most difficult at the beginning because I didn't really know what I was doing. Essentially, in a CAD based package, altering meshes isn't something I was used to doing. It was always just measuring out precise locations and adding chamfers and fillets and holes and stuff as and where needed, or routing stuff through a 3D model. So sculpting and mesh work using vertices and nodes was completely alien. And then that kind of leads on to painting. In Fusion 360 you kind of apply the color to your product or your design, and you might select different faces, but there's not really a brush tool or a painting tool that you can add different colors to different parts and where you need it. So painting is another big one that I found quite difficult at the beginning. I'm still not there yet. I'm getting better at it, but it's something that I have to work on myself. When I first opened up Blender, I didn't have a clue what a modifier was, and to this day I probably only know and use half of them. I'm currently working through a YouTube tutorial series of other modifiers that I want to learn, and I'm going through them slowly so that I can learn them myself. So if you're interested, it should be somewhere. I'll make a link in the description or somewhere at the top of the video here to the playlist. But modifiers is something where if you're just applying one, you can quickly understand how it works. If you're looking at applying multiple together, you need to know how each one of them works and how each one of them works together, and in what order you need to apply them, because if let's say if you have one on top and one on bottom, they might need to be reversed for it to work properly. So modifiers is something that I think beginners struggle with, but again, as long as you're in there and practicing and researching it, I don't think you'll have an issue in the short term, but in the long term you will get over that hurdle and quickly know how to use them. Any CAD based software package share some similarities in viewports and how to move, how to pan, rotate, orbit. So transitioning across, I didn't find it too difficult, but I can understand why some CAD users might be a bit skittish to make the jump. Certainly for the likes of, let's say, Blender shortcuts versus CAD shortcuts, they're all different. How to move and grab something is very different. And if you've spent 10 or 15 years using CAD, you have all these shortcuts in your head. and now you have to learn a brand new set of them. There might be 100, 150 shortcuts in CAD, and now you have to learn another set of 150. And the problem then is when you go back to CAD afterwards, you're using Blender commands in your Fusion 360. You're like, why isn't this rotating? And you're just like, oh, it's because I'm using Blender shortcuts. So I think shortcuts for anybody, regardless of if they're a beginner or if they're an experienced 3D user, that's something that they'll always find challenging. Next is the different design techniques. In CAD, it's very much, regimented. You do your sketch, you extrude it from your plane, you add your holes, your chamfers. It's very strict in how you can actually model something. Whereas in Blender, there's multiple different design techniques. You can edit your mesh, you can go sculpting, you can just scale, rotate it, use a modifier to deform it if you need to. So the different design techniques past the whole sketching part of it is something that I think that CAD users will find challenging, but I think that after a couple of weeks they will surely, hopefully, get used to it. I mentioned painting and modifiers earlier on. The painting modifiers is something that a CAD user has never done before. It's something that is very new, very, I'd say, frightening. It's frightening, the word, because in the painting in Blender, yeah, you can just pick one color and set the metallic, but set it to metallic or set the roughness, but there's 20 or 30 other things you can change about it. Whereas in Fusion, you just drop the material on it. You want stainless steel, just drop it on it. Whereas in Blender, you have to set it how metallic you want it to be, how rough you want it to be, all these different subsurface parts and things like that. So, and that's just changing the color. If you go to painting, then afterwards, it's a completely different beast again. So I think that, CAD users will struggle with that. I struggle with it. I still struggle with it, and I'm by nowhere near experienced enough in the painting in Blender, but it's something that I really want to kind of pick up on. And as I said earlier on, modifiers as well. Modifiers is a tough thing to understand, how you should stack them, what modifiers to use, how to get the best out of the modifiers, which ones to apply first. There is no such thing as a modifier in CAD. They're just tools. If you want to extrude something, you'll use the extrude command, or if you want to thicken something, you will just extrude it. Whereas in Blender, you can grab all the vertices, you can extrude it, you can scale it, you can use different modifiers to do whatever you want. So the modifiers is something that I found as a CAD user as well, that I struggled with. But again, if you're in there every single day, learning a little more every single day, you should come out the other side of it with the knowledge you need. And I suppose one of the biggest things, and it's the last thing on this list, is the difficulty in doing precision work in Blender. Now, I have seen certain add-ons, packaged softwares that you can use to do precision work in Blender, but it's not easy. Coming from a CAD background, you can set the measurements, and everything can be very precise. If you need a whole 10.32 millimeters from this edge, you can do it. In Blender, there's a bit more work to be done, and I feel this is more for the creative person rather than someone that wants a very, strict and, measured design. It just probably won't work like that. And that was one of the things that I had to kind of give up the idea of, that I had to try and loosen myself out, that okay, this is how Blender works and I need to move forward with it, rather than trying to fit my CAD experience into Blender. I had to literally blend the two and make sure that they both worked together in tandem. Blender is quite challenging to learn. There's a lot of different areas that are new to most and fresh users, even if they have experience with other 3D design packages. In my personal opinion, I think new users will typically become to feel comfortable within a few weeks, but that could be longer depending on how much 3D modeling you actually do in the software. In terms of mastering every aspect of Blender, I really don't know how long this would take, because there's so much to it. You've so many different options to do work in there in terms of video editing and rigging, painting, just hard surface modeling and sculpting. I don't think that you'll master everything in Blender, but it provides you with everything so that you can. And to wrap it all up, if you have any interest in learning or getting into 3D, then Blender is a great first step, especially because it's free. Blender can really unlock your creativity and can set you on the course to make some amazing designs, just as long as you're consistent. Finally, I would like to welcome you to the world of 3D design. You will get frustrated and the road may seem long, but you won't progress unless you start. My name is Ethan. If you've liked this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more, consider subscribing. Thank you very much and have a nice day.